and I had a tumor in my spine, and the doctor said, listen, I'll give you 6 months and you're gone. And you can imagine my wife was sitting next to me and she cried like crazy and cried a bit. And after a minute, I stopped and I said, listen, I've done my 36 years. Most people don't do 3 or 4 lifetimes. I've had my chemo. The next day I flew to Brazil and raced a big race of 350 people in Brazil over 120 kilometers over 4 days. And I won that race again at age 58. The guy who came second was 28. Now the record, and I always like breaking records, so the record for the longest surviving multiple myeloma patient is 33 years. So I'm going to try and beat that. Just make sure I began very strict carnivore and strict fastings. I was in the hospital. I wasn't allowed any visitors. So she slept in the chair next to me for 21 days while I was in hospital having treatment. So those are kind of sacrifices she's made.
All right. So I have with us today Oscar Chalupsky. Correct me if I say that incorrect.
Perfectly well, Shawn. Don't worry.
Got it. All right, Oscar. And you've got an interesting story. You are, first of all, world champion in kayak, correct? If I'm not mistaken on that. That's an incredibly challenging sport. I've known some guys. I've done some competitive rowing stuff, so there's some level of similarity there. And I know it takes an incredible amount of power to do that. To think that you were a multiple-time world champion. You are, I guess you grew up in South Africa. I can hear that. My mother's South African, just by the way. And so she's actually with me right now. She's visiting for the week. And she grew up in a little town called Benoni, which
and I know Benoni very well. I did my Olympic training in the Benoni Lake. She'll know. Lake Faramir. Yeah, she'll know it.
What was the name of the lake again?
Lake Faramir. She'll know. Lake
Faramir. Yeah. Okay. I will relay that to her. And so I guess we'll just start with, you had a cancer diagnosis and I know you're currently fighting that. Just tell us a little about yourself. Tell us a little about, because you got an interesting story.
Yeah, I started very young at the age of 14 and basically went to do sport, and I made the national team at age 14, the senior national team. So my life has been about sport all my life. And I'm mainly on water sports, but when everybody threw out a challenge, I did it. Like I played rugby for provincial rugby as well, and from South Africa, you would know about that. And so I did everything at the highest level. I went to the Olympics, was basically the captain or the main guy at the 1992 Olympics, and we were let back in. So I did a lot of my races in the apartheid era where I had to sneak in Germany, Belgium, France, and all those things. But the big thing happened at age 10 when I won the junior and senior Ironman. Now that's the original Ironman, which is swimming, paddling, board, and running. And 1 month later, a guy called Grant Kenny won it in Australia. So it took me 5 years to race this guy. And the race that we eventually got together, which he had won 4 years in a row, is the Molokai Channel. From Molokai, you probably know, to Oahu, which is 52 kilometers, 32 miles across the Kayaking Channel, the biggest channel in the world. And I won my first one when I entered at age 20. And to cut a long story short, at age 49, and you keep on saying how you can defy all logic by just training and eating right and doing things like that. At age 49, I won my 12th title, 30 years after the first one. And the guy who came second was Olympic gold medalist who won it 2 or 3 times. And beat about 12 seconds over 3 hours, 23 minutes. And I think, and that's what life's about, is that all these things that in the past, you think they're Mickey Mouse until I was sitting right here as I stood there. I was sitting on the 25th of November, 2019, and I had a tumor in my spine, and the doctor said, listen, I'll give you 6 months and you're gone. And you can imagine my wife was sitting next to me, and she cried like crazy and cried a bit. And after a minute, I stopped and I said, listen, I've done my 36 years. Most people don't do 3 or 4 lifetimes, and that's what I ask and implore everybody to live each day, and that's what I've been doing. So I've been fighting it. Funny enough, on the 25th of November 2023, they said, no, call your family, you've got 2 weeks. So that's how bad I was in hospital. And I said, no way. I said, you've got to be kidding me. I'm not ready. In fact, they brought the priest. I said, you've got to be kidding me. And the long short of it, I said, no, bug you, I'm not going to eat for 21 days. I fasted. I'm very much friends with a guy called Professor Tim Noakes. And I very much follow the keto and carnivore diet for 15, 16 years before everybody. So in 2012, when I won my 12th world title at age 49, I'd already studied all these things and worked it all out. Because understand, at age 49, I couldn't do 1 pull-up. You can do all those things. I couldn't do 1 pull-up, but probably could do 10 press-ups. But I was beating guys that could do 1,000 pull-ups and 1,000 press-ups using my head and every device available to me. And I think that's what it's life about. You've got to find a different way, a better way.
A lot of stuff there. That's so rugby for the Transvaal. Is that the provincial team you were playing with?
I was playing for Natal because I didn't.
Natal.
Yeah, I was Natal. The Sharks. You probably the Transvaal, the Sharks. So you really know South Africa.
I've been many times. Like I said, my mother grew up there, and we had some relatives that lived in Salt Rock. They
lived in Natal. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's an interesting. I've got somewhat related to this family called the Hewlett, and they're big sugar people, which is interesting because I don't eat sugar.
If you start asking people about me in South Africa, you'll probably get the same thing as the Hewletts. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. So, South Africa is obviously a country where meat is considered normal. I think it still is. You're in Portugal right now. Are you now residing in Portugal, or are you just there back and forth?
So that's another long story. So I went to South Africa, and then the women on the 25th of November, came out of hospital. 26th of November, they said, no, we can do nothing for you in South Africa. We've exhausted all the medical schemes that we've done in South Africa, and they've done in Portugal. So I actually literally fly backwards and forwards every week from Portugal to South Africa because I do a lot of motivational talks, helping people overcome adversity. And then I come back here, and I've just actually finished walk out there. I got there at 7:30, now 5 o'clock. Just walked out of my chemo session, having a thing called Pilsenberg or Carbohydrates thing. It's just basically a 5-6 hour journey that I have. And then tomorrow, again, I'm planning to fly back to South Africa, Cape Town, and I'm getting to talk to a big bank in South Africa. I look forward to it. I haven't given up because I want to try and give my expertise. And you'll see when you read the book, everything is about helping other people. And that's the whole thing. No matter when it comes to diet, family, business. When you read the book, I'm sure you're going to enjoy it.
When you, and this is a book here, let me see if I can get it on the camera there. No Retreat, No Surrender. And I do look forward to looking at it because just talking to you, it sounds like there's some interesting stuff in there. The diagnosis of cancer you said you had a tumor in Shawn. What's the name of it? What does it say?
At first, I didn't know because they said this is a secondary cancer. So I went back to Chalupsky Hospital, and there's people from South Africa around the world know that's the first heart transplant. And they were going to operate on this tumor on my spine that had eaten away my spine. And just before they found out that, they said, no, we think you've got a thing called bone marrow cancer, multiple myeloma. It's one of the only cancers there's no cure. But having said that, I don't believe it, and I just keep on trying to fight it. And it's been a really tough cancer because it keeps on coming back. It just doesn't want to go away. And I'm never not on, I'm always on chemo. I'm always having treatment, which is a pain in the ass. But again, it doesn't really affect me. At the end of the day, I have to help people, and I show people it doesn't have to affect you. And again, I do lots of intermittent fasting, lots of carnivore, lots of long fast as well. So you can overcome. And I speak to a guy called Dr. Thomas Seefried, who you probably heard about.
Yeah, I know Thomas.
Yeah,
I've interviewed him a couple of times, and you mentioned Tim Noakes, who I've also met virtually many times. And as an athlete, and I'm an athlete as well, and I can't imagine not doing it. Are you still active? I don't know what you're able to do with the can. Are you still out there swimming and lifting and doing that stuff?
And it's an interesting story because I got it, and then I had a stem cell transplant, which is basically a bone marrow transplant, and then it went into not remission, but I was on chemo. I flew one day, and I was at age 58. Flew one day, I had my chemo. The next day I flew to Brazil and raced a big race of 350 people in Brazil over 120 kilometers over 4 days. And I won that race. Again, at age 58, the guy came second was 20. What I've done is I have to watch my heart because at the moment, basically my factory that makes my oxygen for going around the blood is completely shut. It's like running at 20%. So when I went today, they said, no, you've got anemia and aren't you feeling tired? And I said, I don't know what tired feels because I'm an athlete. Yeah, but I can see if I just walk, please say this, Shawn, if I just walk like on the golf course, my heart rate will go to 140. Normally, if I walk, my heart rate goes to 50. So that's the problem, 140. So I have to watch it. So I swim, when I do everything, I've just got to be a little bit more careful. I have to rest more and things like that because I just cannot do it because I'll have a heart attack like that. Because I've just got not enough oxygen running around my blood because my multiple myeloma is attacked. In fact, when they said I had no chance, at 5% of the oxygen level that I normally have with that. Don't stop. Exactly. I don't stop things on it. That's important things.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, obviously you said the priest was called in to read the last rites type of thing, and you're like, no, I'm not quite ready yet. And here you are giving an interview and still competing, and that's amazing. Interesting that you said years ago you discovered nutrition, how to change nutrition. You've been doing low carb, ketogenic carnivore diets for many years. What led you down that path as an athlete? Because that's not typically, we hear most high performing athletes are carbohydrate based. And I know Tim Noakes has been pushing back on that as of late over the last decade or so, since he was the authority on running for many years. And now he said, wait a minute, this may not be there. How did you get steered that way?
It was very interesting because it's a very long story, because as athlete, you're always trying to find the next thing. You can remember, you a little bit younger than me, but Dr. Robert Haas and then all these bad diets and vegetarian and vegan and all this. I did all of it. And I always just think, oh, this is not working. Even with the carbohydrate thing, I said, no, I'm not changing my diet. But a guy called Dr. Eric Borges, who's a radiologist in Michigan, he said, Oscar, I said, I'm onto the new thing. He says, and he's a radiologist, but a very good one. And he said, he diagnosed my tumor. And he said, I think the way forward is a no-carb diet, getting it to ketosis, and start. And I was one of the very, very first. And I actually told Tim Noakes this before he even changed over. And he said, oh, I can't believe it. And then he changed like 2 or 3 weeks later, because Paula Dewey Fraser, top triathlete, also a good friend of mine from those days, said, no, she's on it and it's working very well. And from that day on, number one, your weight stays constant and you've got energy all day. And I take it to the next degree. So in my 12th race, at my 12th win at age 49, racing against these youngsters, I also don't eat anything and drink anything for 3.5 hours. Because understand what I'm thinking, and I'm reading the Shackleton books, because what I really believe in, Shawn, is that we're all getting older, believe in me. But we should be all getting wiser. And we don't read, we don't listen, we don't go out there and research for ourselves. And I work it out. But if I don't eat, every muscle in my body is going there to make me cross that finishing line faster than the next guy. So drink water, I know it's going to use up energy. So I try and do the whole race, 3.5 hours in a midday sun away, with no water and no food. And again, that pulls to the fire the logic. No, but
I've seen people negative split things like marathons drinking because they just weigh so much less. And so they're carrying less mass across the finish line. So they actually find that they go faster as they get lighter, as they become less and less, I guess, waterlogged. And I think Tim wrote a book called Waterlogged, if I'm not mistaken. But so it's interesting to see that you discover that. And of course, South Africa, I can remember as a child, the first time I had the biltong there, which is, I just think is just fantastic. And it's a shame we don't get that in the United States, or it's very hard to come by. There's a few places, a few South African butchers that I think make a little bit, but it's not common like it was there. So was that something like, what was your diet? I assume you're training in South Africa. Were you eating a lot of that biltong and things like that?
Yes, 100%. Again, I'm very much only eat once a day. But when I do eat it, mainly, and if I have a snack, it's mainly grilled and biltong, and obviously macadamia nuts, and I'm very strict on that and that thing. And then I always treat myself. So like my brother's turned 60. He's also a very good athlete 2 days ago. So I said I had some champagne, but then I won't actually have alcohol. And then if I do have alcohol, just have a little bit. Unlike before, I used to race on 10 or 12 years before a race, because that's when you're young and stupid and you don't know this. But nowadays, I also had an atrial fibrillation at age about 5. And again, the doctor told me, he said, listen, you mustn't gulp your port wine down, you must sip it. So I said, okay. And then from that day on, 2 or 3 days before a race, I'll have no alcohol. But now with the cancer lumps, and especially carbs, so now I cut down for months on end, no alcohol, just to try and keep the cancer at bay. Yeah, so, but again, you're 100% right. Biltong is my favorite thing in Chaparral, do South Africans in Forte, and we go by lots of kilos all the time, and that's what you can live on very easy.
With the cancer and the chemotherapy, one thing I've seen, and I've run into a number of people now that have been dealing with cancer and chemotherapy and have done it with a carnivore diet, and they've often noted, and their physician has noted, how well they tolerate it, whereas other people get very sick and they have all kinds of side effects. What has your experience been? Obviously, if you're racing the next day, you're obviously feeling reasonably good.
No, this is an interesting story, is that when I got this diagnosis, a friend of mine, phoned me and said, listen, my husband's got the same disease. When he had the chemo, he was so sick that he walked and tripped over a drip And Noakes is back in 12th place. I said, what the crazy guy? What the hell? So I straight away worked it out. I said, listen, the only way you can get sick is if you've got something in your stomach. So from that day, before I even heard about it and before anybody even talked about it, I used to fast 3 days before I had my chemo. I'd have my chemo, and then I had my wine and my cheese, very ketogenic diet, but the only thing I was cheating on is my wine. And I had it in the middle of COVID, so you couldn't go anywhere. Understand this. And now it's become medical research to say, listen, number one, the chemo works better if you don't eat because you've got nothing there. Number two, how can you get sick if you've got nothing in you? So, and again, obviously, Shawn, it's a mental thing as well. I just don't believe I'll get sick, and I don't believe I can get tired. It's very important, your mental attitude. And again, that comes from like what you do, trying to do 1,000 squats with 1,000 kilos, 1,000 pounds. So those are the kind of things that sort of you fight this cancer, because that's what you need. But the most important thing you need is a strong brain. And if you don't feel like that you're sick, you won't be sick. And again, I just put it. Yeah, I am. I think I've got a little bit of action now, and I feel good. I'm not as good as I'd like to be. I'd like to still be winning, but that is the most important thing. Just keep upbeat, and then following people like you, following people that they are the positive, that know the fact. I know the facts. You cannot live on vegetables, but me.
It's funny, my mom was regaling my wife about how stubborn I was as a kid and refusing to eat vegetables. She said I would, very polite about it, I would just refuse to eat them, and I would sit there at the table for 3, 4, 5 hours until they gave up finally. I was not giving in, so I had a kind of a stubborn side to me, but I guess it works well for me today because I don't eat them. As far as, so you have multiple myeloma. One of the ways we diagnose multiple myeloma, there's some urine proteins. You look at these so-called Benz-Jones proteins, but there's skeletal surveys we used to do, and you just take a blanket X-ray of the whole body and see what's going on. So where has this, you mentioned your spine, has it been diffusely spread all across your body, or is it localized?
Quite a few lesions, but mainly on my spine. And like in October this year, it came back, another lesion, and then we radiated, and then again, same thing again. I just made sure I became very strict carnivore and strict fasting. Yeah, so we measure kappa light chains, and to give an example, when I got it in 2019, my kappa light chain level was at 1,400. It went all the way down to the hundreds and then to the 50s and 5s. And then last year when I had that tube in my spine, because I had a sore back actually, from paddling all these years, thousands of it. I worked out, I sort of paddled 3 times around the world paddling, so that went a long way. And then my whole cartilage is completely gone on my L1, L7, 8. And then when I had that X-ray, that's when they found the next tumor. Then my kappa light chain went again from 100 to 1,470. And I know if I didn't fast for 21 days, it would never come down, because it only came down, and then I was on a thing called Velcade. That's supposed to last years, and it lasted 4 months, and my multiple myeloma turned it over and said, thank you very much. And then it went all the way up to 500. And as these numbers, most people are on their deathbed at 200 or 300. I was at 500 or 600. And then it went up to 600, and then hopefully now it's coming down, I hope.
And so I guess you've got a team of doctors in Portugal treating you. Do they have any thoughts or concerns, or are they surprised? Or are they concerned about your diet, or do they discuss the diet at all?
It's interesting. All nurses can't believe. They say, what did you eat? I said, nothing. When was the last time? Oh, 2 days ago. Oh, okay. And then you worry about it. It's a different way. And again, they are pretty surprised, because finish my chemo, normally jump on the airplane to South Africa, which is 13 hours flying, and then give a speech and then fly all the way back, because I have my treatment weekly. And they are surprised, but he's known me for a while now. He's quite a good doctor. He's realized what I say is what I'm going to do. And I said, listen, I've got to still work. I'm young. I'm not giving up, and I don't want cancer to rule my life. So I want a life, and yes, I know you have to make sacrifices. I have to do that, and my sacrifices are that I don't have alcohol for a while, which is tough, and then I won't have any carbs for a while, and I'll fast for a long time. So those are the kind of sacrifices I make. I didn't talk about it. I'm also on some alternative stuff. I try, you might know, bendazole, which is the ivermectin and bendazole. I'm using a
type of thing, yeah.
Again, you've got to try everything, and then I know I'd love to hear. I'm trying chlorine dioxide, CDS, chlorine dioxide solution, which basically puts more oxygen in the water. You just drink it during the day. There's no side effect, and also costs the cheapest chips. And again, I've done research, and that's the whole thing that you probably all find, and Shawn, you find, is which rabbit hole do you go down, and which is telling the truth, and which is absolute nonsense. And my general feeling is that nobody's making money out of it, and they're still pushing it. And I think there could be something in it. So that's sort of gist of it.
And like I said, good for you for doing what you're doing. Most people can't imagine being in this situation where you've got this disease that's trying to kill you, and you're fighting everything you can to stop it. And you can't fault for somebody for trying various things, because a lot of times when you talk to the standard oncology people, it's pretty grim. Hey, look, like you said, we're going to call in the priest, and you're like, no, I'm not ready yet. So good for you on that. With all the fasting, one of the concerns around cancer is cachexia. A lot of people just get emaciated. Are you maintaining your weight okay? Obviously, you're still able to.
Very good. Finding out one of my oncologists got diagnosed with fertility. Listen, one thing you do is always keep your weight up, because it'll always come down, because that's what happens. And it's interesting to see that even when you do these long fasts, yes, you lose a bit of weight, but it's not as bad as you think. And again, I always say, you start losing muscle. And I also don't believe that as well, because on these long fasts, you're doing a few exercises, your body adapts very quickly. So I do watch my weight. I don't try and get too light. And I still, again, I've got it to be at 95, and now I'm at 99. But I watch it, but I don't force it. For me, it's being in a state of ketosis. I never have to eat. I eat basically socially, like people drink socially. That's when I eat. I eat when I've got family, and I think, and the whole thing about cancer, I think, which is that something wrong, is that people should be talking more about it, because we can from each other. Where so many people keep it quiet, and don't tell anybody. To me, that's nonsense, because you can't learn. You can learn from other people. I can teach other people, and other people can teach me. But if you keep it to yourself, terrible. So that's why I really have, and you see my social network, I'm always telling people what's going on, and it's good or bad, that you've got to tell them, because that's what it's reality.
Yeah, I'll refer to our friend Tim Noakes again. I mean, he talks with the wisdom of the crowds, but I mean, it always perplexes me that I see people that put disease in remission, and sort of the medical community just says, well, that's interesting, and ignores it. And I seem to think, why don't you investigate what these people have in common, instead of saying multiple sclerosis has a 5% remission rate, and just what do those people have in common? What are they doing? Why aren't we looking at every little aspect about that? Because it seems like it's relevant, but it just doesn't seem to stimulate the thought. Maybe because it's, as a physician, you only encounter a few of those in your career, but collectively throughout the world, there's hundreds, if not thousands, of these people out there. And when you come together, you can start to see, I did this, and you get some level of, as you mentioned, there's a lot of nonsense. I hear a lot of nonsense stuff out there that I'm like, I don't think there's anything to it, but sometimes you get surprised by that, but probably a lot of it is. Obviously, you don't know how much time you have. What are your sort of goals at this point? Are you still looking at competitive goals in the athletic world, or is it just mostly inspirational things, or what are you trying to do at this point?
I'm sort of basically, again, it's sort of a three-pronged attack. Number one, I still want to be very competitive with that. I can still go very fast in my boat training. And number two is, I think, if the fitter you are, the stronger you are to fight this cancer. The record, and I always like breaking records. So the record for the longest surviving multiple myeloma patient is 33 years. So I'm going to try and beat that. And again, you see what my whole goal run at the moment is just to live long enough, because I know that CAR T works, but it's not working well for multiple myeloma, and you probably know this. So I've had friends that had it and had it twice, and they didn't last 4 or 5 months. So the longer I'm on this, Carbohydrates fulfills the med. And then I hoped once my cancer's worked out, this treatment is going to go, and then I'll go to teclistamab. And teclistamab might give me 2 or 3 years. By then, I'm sure a CAR T could be in the right lane. It's very expensive. And obviously, it's something in the right direction. They must be making breakthroughs. And that's my goal. So every time when I'm feeling down, and quite often when you're having cancer, is that you got to think, okay, you've got to get the next year and the next week and the next thing. And that's not luck. It's got to be setting these little goals to achieve them. And along the way, get fit. I love my golf stuff. I play a lot of golf, but a low handicap golf as well. And then I normally swim. So on a normal day, if I'm not bad, then I normally wake up very early and I cycle for an hour. then go to work and then do CrossFit 3 times a week and then pedal between 20 and 40 kilometers. And then that's sort of my day. And then I always do a bit of evening exercises, push-ups, sit-ups, all the things that you can just see in front of the TV every day. So that's my day. My day is there to just try and be fit enough to fight this cancer, and again, not fat enough, and also don't lose too much weight when you're doing all the exercise. So I do a lot of Matt Ratone, you probably know, a good friend of Tim. I do a lot of math training as well. A lot of
low heart rate type stuff.
Matt Zero, 180 minus your age basically is a simple thing that I could do. And I'll do my walks and I run. And I have to eat that actually because it goes through the roof. I used to run quite fast. Now I can't. I can only walk if my heart rate is so high. And hopefully new drugs that red blood cells will come up. And my hemoglobin, when somebody told me today, I was speaking to a doctor, and she said 8.2 and you 100 kilos, that is ridiculous. I wouldn't be able to stand up. I said, I'm afraid I don't feel like that. I can feel that down on fire at 8.2 hemoglobin, but it doesn't affect my brain.
Talking about transfusions when you get around 6 or something like that. Let me ask you, because back to your training, what would it, just for perspective, obviously world champion kayaking, most people have no concept of what goes into that, but what would a training cycle for you be when you're training for world championships, for like when you're...
Yeah, so I normally understand I specialize in the ocean. The wind blows downwind. So Maracaibo is 32 miles with big ocean swell, 20 to 30 feet, winds 50 to 60 miles an hour. And that's the kind of thing I like. So number one, you need skill. Understand with my age, I do technique training in my kayak on flat water 6 or 7 times a week, an hour every day. So that's number one. That's the first thing you do. There's no way at 49 you can beat somebody at 29 and you got no power. You can't even do one pull-up. You have to use your brain and you use technique. That's the number one. Technique. And I still do it now 30 years later. Technique is one of the most important things. And most people, they just go out there and train. They don't perfect their technique and they wonder why they don't get any faster. And then if the wind blows, then I'll do 40 to 60 kilometer paddles downwind. And in between that, I always swim. My swimming is to keep my full strong. She's sitting like a bicycle. He's always sitting forward. So you want to do half extensions and all those things. So I always swim 1 to 3 kilometers every day. One of the important things with my back is so swimming really helps me a lot. And then I'll do CrossFit just for the time to training, just to get a little bit of power in my body, which I haven't got much, but a normal day. So a normal day, I'm doing 4 to 5 hours a day, and then on a big day, 6 or 7 hours a day of training. But mixing it up nicely. There's lots about variety and having fun. So everything I do, I love. I love my techniques. I love my downwind fishing. Look, you crazy. The other day I did 80 kilometer downwind, 80. That took 4 hours, 37 minutes. I took no nothing, and I averaged just on 12 miles an hour for 80 kilometers. So you can do it. And again, I do it for fun. And I love it. And I think that's where the people make this disconnect. It should be fun. I see that when you're doing your weights, you're enjoying it. Yes, it's tough, but you're enjoying it. And if you're enjoying it, you'll do it more often.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard, but it is fun. I feel like that's when I'm most alive, is when I'm physically active and moving and your heart rate's up and you just feel like that's what life is about in many ways. And so nutrition, I can't imagine the caloric expenditure. So when you were obviously not fasting for cancer, but when you were just eating to train, how much food would you go through? And particularly if on a low carb situation, like how much would you have to eat?
That's very interesting because what happened was this race was always in May. On the 1st of March, this is at my peak. I used to stop drinking for the whole month. A social drinker, fun kind of guy. And I would always lose between 18 and 25 kilos. So I wanted to be lean. So I'd be at like 260 pounds and I want to get it to down below 200 pounds. So that's how much pounds I use. Because I'd find it easy to drop 5 or 6 or 7 kilos in a week. My most in a week is 10 kilos, and it doesn't affect my bit because I'm putting the right food back in, just eating. I don't eat the carbs or things like that, and I'm drinking water. I don't do any energy drinks, by the way. I don't drink water if I do drink. And that helps again. If I have coffee, it's completely practice in the morning. I have to start eating a lot, but my body, I want to be using weight all the time when I'm racing. I really want to get down to 95 kilos to about 100 and 190 5 pounds, I think, around there. So that's what I try and get to. And then I just stay there and I can basically eat it, but I eat when I'm hungry and I eat the right food. And I think that's an important thing. I'll have a cheat 1 or 2 days, but not often when I'm in training. And then again, I won't drink any alcohol 2 or 3 days before the race. And then my final meal is normally like the late afternoon before the race that starts the next morning. So that's normally just meat with a little bit of carbs. But everybody tells me if I had a little bit of carbs, I just have a little bit of carbs, which might be. I'm not big on carbs at all. I know when I race.
So when you're up at your peak
carbs.
weight, you said somewhere around 260, so 30 kilos ish or somewhere close to that. What are you doing to get to that size? Because does that require more carbohydrates, or how do you get that much weight?
Yeah, no, it's mainly drinking. The rest is things. That's alcohol, but double whammy. So if you go to Ireland and drinking Guinness all day and you drink 15 Guinnesses a day, believe me, you put on weight so fast. And you can see, carbs does it. Carbs, that really gets me. People don't realize that, and they're still having the carbs. And my son's a perfect example. He has carbs for 3 or 4 days, and straight away he breaks out in acne. Take the carbs away, acne gone. All this reactive tan and all that kind of stuff. And meantime, just very simple, eat the right food and off it goes. And if he eats carbs, he puts on weight, you find that he sits the period and goes on. Carbs is bad. Now, obviously, some people are worse than others, and you've always got people that don't eat anything and they always stay thin. But as I tell you, being a visceral fat is the worst kind of fat. The guys look thin. And then we had in paddling, paddling community, our age, 50, 55, we lost 6 people that all looked like you. But the one guy used to drink Coke and Coke and biscuits and did 1,000 pull-ups. But again, he had visceral heart attack. All of them had a heart attack at age 50, 55 because watching what they eat, because they never put on any weight. That's what happened. And this has happened to a lot of people. You've got to have checkup. And I think that's...
Yeah, it's surprising. There's been some recent evidence showing that some very high level, particularly endurance athletes, have a relatively high risk for cardiovascular disease. It was interesting. And some people say maybe it's the training itself, maybe it's the diet that leads to the training. And some people will eat a lot of carbs so they can train harder, and maybe that's causing issues.
You enjoyed one of my races, which I didn't win. They said before the race, when I had a USA doctor said, "No, you've had a heart attack." I said, "Are you kidding me?" You can imagine how that played on my brain. So I phoned my cardiologist in South Africa, who I know very well. I can just phone him up, and he says, "No way, these people don't know you've got an athlete's heart, which is twice the size, and it doesn't perform like anybody else." And from that day, I always have a medical checkup. From that day, like 20 years ago, and made sure, because you don't want anything in your brain saying, "Oh, you could be having a heart attack. You could this, your chest feel," and you can imagine how my chest feels a bit back. So that's why you do it every year. In fact, in Portugal and Germany, you have to have a medical test before you can do any sport competitively, which is fantastic. And I think every sport should do that, because you never know. You can't tell unless you have tests.
Do you, obviously, when you're on the water, is this mostly a solitary sport? Do you have training partners that you sometimes train with? How does that work?
That's a good question, because a lot of the time in the ocean, even if you went out in a group, you don't see anybody for 30 or 40 kilometers or 3 or 4 hours, because you can be 50 meters next to the next guy, and you've got a 20-foot wave, and you don't see anybody. So it is very lonely and out there, but it's so fun because you're in with nature. But when I was racing, my brother is one of the fastest, if not the fastest paddler in the world as well. So we used to race, and then I actually go and actually watch where he is to make sure that I beat him. So then there's a sort of different strategy. But when you can't see 5 or 6 boats, you can see 1 or 2. That's all you can watch, because it's just so rough out there. It's all over the place. You can't see anybody. But you've got to assess the opposition, and obviously the older you get, like I did negative splits in 2012, where halfway I was lying 10th, and at the end I won 12 seconds. Negative splitting, watching where everybody else was all the time, because I only want to win. I don't want to break any records, especially at 49. You're not going to break any records. But funny enough, I was very close to the record at age 49 at 3 hours 23 minutes for 32 miles.
What, just from a paddling standpoint, where is the best in the world? Where do the best paddlers come from?
It's always the Southern Hemisphere: New Zealand, Australia, Tahiti, and South Africa. So at the moment, if we looked at the Molokai, the winners, probably 50 is Australia, and then there's one good Tahitian, and then South African. So that's the sort of balance. All Southern Hemisphere. There has been good American paddlers. A guy called Greg Barton won 2 Olympic gold medals at Seoul, flat water kayaking. Most guys doing flat water kayaking will do surf ski paddling. So it's a good crossover. So Clint Robinson, who came second to me and 2 or 3 Molokai championships, he was an Olympic gold medalist in 1992 at the Barcelona Olympics that I was at, where I got beaten so badly by this guy. And when I raced him in the surf ski, I used to beat him. And then he dropped and realized, hey, when I was training myself and looking after myself and my gut feel, I beat him. But when I was listening to Hungarians and Swedish and Russian coaches telling you what to do and not thinking it through, I lost. So from that day on in 1992, I kept on winning all the time at such an old age.
Is there, with you just mentioned flat, because I remember seeing some of the Olympic stuff, and it seemed like it was on rivers or flat water. Is that different?
There's one slalom, goes through the slalom gates, and the other one is the swimming pool like you've seen rowing. So you've got a 200, a 500, and a 1,000 meter. One, which is one-man kayak, K2, two-man kayak, and K4, four-man kayak. So I was in the four-man kayak in 1992 and got beaten, and again, adversity, opportunity, and I learned from there. When I got beaten so badly, the curvature of the earth, I realized there's a different way of doing it, and it always is a different way.
I see. And what is the physical? There's sometimes body prototypes for people that are excellent? Is it tall? Is it? I don't know what the kayaking requirements are.
Rowers have to be tall. You can't be a small rower. That's why they've got the weight classes. And paddling is also quite good to be very tall and big, but the boats are only 5.2 meters long, 19 feet long, so they're very short. So the two bigger guys sink into the boat too much. So it's one of the sports where you have tall guys and short guys. You just got to fit in, and again, it's a power to weight ratio sport, using everything and mainly using legs, which is something that everybody thinks, oh, you paddle like this. You don't use it. You actually paddle like this. You can see that I'm not even using. And it's all coming from your legs and your core. There's no arms as we get better. But all the beginners will do this. It's the same thing as rowing. You use your arms instead of just using your legs. You had mentioned you had refined technique. Is that something you had modeled after someone else, or did you just develop it yourself? Or how did that turn out? And all completely revolutionary. And when I first did it, that's a joke. There I was, still my footies, beating everybody. That's because for surf ski. And these guys were at the height of their Olympic career, and they couldn't beat me. And I said, God, because I sat there, and I understand my training sessions are 3 or 4 hours long in the ocean. I said, work it out. What's going to make me go faster? And the problem with having coaches, they just tell you what to do, and you follow like sheep. That's why you never change anything. So I changed everything. Changed the feather angle, changed the lengths, changed everything. I went away from using my arms, and I only used my legs and core. And now everybody, some 20 years later, are realizing, gee, what Oscar was saying 20 years ago is actually working. And now they're all paddling closer to what I paddled 20 years ago. But again, they don't listen to people. Even though you beat them, they still don't listen. And that's what happens in life. We've got all these different people telling you different things on diet and training, everything, and you just don't know which one to follow. But they don't realize I'm there. My passion is to make people better, and my passion is to help people. But they always think, gee, why is Oscar telling me all this? Because I don't care. I want to help. I want to beat anybody that's out there, even if I've taught him. When you say you want to help people or help people get better, is this primarily athletes you're helping, or is it just a general population? What is? Because you got an inspiring story. So yeah, you see, when you read the book, you'll see that it's like, I mean, I had a person that said, listen, I was near suicide. I've read your book, and it's helped me so much. And I feel so strong. And again, you get it all day, and I'm sure you get it all the time. People asking, I've just got diagnosed with this. I've got diagnosed. And then everybody, I'm always replying to say, try this, try that. I'm not a doctor, but try this is what I've done. That's what I do the whole time. I do that even for athletes, for business people, and for run people that just suddenly gets that call from left field to say, listen, you've got pancreatic cancer. Now what do you do? So you said 14-year-old kid, you're making the national team, which obviously has to be unusual. And I don't know how old you're now. How old are you right now, Oscar? You're 61. I'm born in 1963. Yes, I'm like 4 years older than you, I think.
61. Yeah, I'm 57. And has there ever been a time in your life where you have not trained? Because I have. I mean, since 13 years of age, I've never stopped training. I mean, are you the same way? Or you just never take a break?
No, I never take a break. The longest time I took a break is, you'll see in the book that I got banned from racing the Molokai after winning 7 in a row. I got banned and then I took up golf. So that's the least amount of training I ever did was that year where I went from 24 to a scratch golfer to become a pro golfer. So that's the only time but again, I was playing golf 5, 6, 7, 8 hours a day, and on weekends, 18 hours a day. So there's no time that I've ever not trained. And the big difference, and very similar to me, is that I've never been a professional athlete. There's never been a time where I could wake up and I had money in the bank. I was always working. So that's the whole thing in life, is getting balance. Balancing your sport, your family time, and your exercise time through your life. And it changes all the time. You get married. I've been together with my wife for 43 years, married for coming up next week for 30 years or 38 years. So it's a long time. But you have to make sacrifices for that marriage to work. And the same thing like my sport. I had to do it a lot. And my kids are 34 and 30, and you've got to make time for them. So that's being not a professional sportsman. You couldn't do it. You had to really fit it in. So I used to do golf at 4:30 in the AM. In my heart of some of my paddling career, I used to wake up at 3 a.m. to go do a paddling session, get to work back at 8 o'clock in the morning. So those are the kind of sacrifices you have to make when you're not a professional athlete. And I race all these time against a lot of professional athletes. So I had to be cleverer, smarter, and very much plan. You have to plan it, otherwise you've got no chance.
You'd mentioned you were banned from Molokai after winning at 7. Why did they ban you? What was that about?
Because of apartheid, I won in 1983, and then I kept on winning, and then I got banned because they said, no, we're going to have Olympics, and the USA Olympic Committee said, you can't race. We know that you train in South Africa, so you're out. So they banned me, then I took up golf, and then in 1991, a big event happened in South Africa. Nelson Mandela was released. So I met Nelson Mandela for the Olympics, and I went to the Olympics and got my ass, as I say, literally kicked. But I learned from it. I learned from everything like that. And then I went back paddling and things like that, and I haven't stopped since.
So, yeah. So the ban was due to South Africa's apartheid policy that they put in, of course. So you said you've got a spouse. Does she have any sort of athletic? Is she? Because my spouse she's fit and she's not competitive. She's competitive. She's not as competitive as I am. I'm like these weird guy, likes to compete at everything. I can't. Anything I'm doing, I'm trying to compete at. It's almost like a madness, but you just do it. This is who you are. Is your wife, she's obviously supportive, but does she do any of this stuff?
At the end of the day, she follows the same diet as me, and then we'll walk together and run together. She used to run fairly fast. She did the 10 kilometers in under 1, so that's her competitive. But she's not competitive. So she hasn't got she's competitive-ish. I'm sure your wife is. She wants to do well and break 10Ks is not that being competitive, but she's always keeping fit, always watching her weight, but she has to make huge sacrifices. Like when I was in the hospital, I wasn't allowed any visitors, so she slept in the chair next to me for 21 days while I was in the hospital having treatment. So those are kind of sacrifices she's made, and then getting me up to go to the toilet and all those kind of things. She was doing it. No nurse was doing it. She's been doing it, and good support. And again, that's what life's about. It's having the support and having friends and having family out there helping all the time, and people don't appreciate how much they are doing for you, and just you being out there telling people about Carnivore Diet, just helping a lot of people, and you don't hear from them all, but you know that you're doing a good job, and that's what I try and do. I hear it every day when I make a post. The people love it, and it's not to blow smoke up my ass, it's to help other people, because sure, if you can just help one person, it's lovely. I started as a lifesaver, so my life has always been trying to save people's lives from 8 years old. And when somebody's drowning, and I've done many cardiacs and lost a lot of people, funny enough, and learning the basic skills of cardiac massage and those things, I think are important in life because you can help somebody.
Yeah, because you mentioned you have a couple kids in their 30s, I think, like that. Because I often say that your kids they'll use you as an example. What you demonstrate for them is what really gets through. You can tell them whatever, but unless you can live it and show them. Are your kids relatively healthy? Are they?
My son, as I said, but they all follow the right diets, and they all follow our way of being up, living, having fun, got time, and I think that's having sort of balance in life. Again, the whole story coming back to that balance. My son is a second officer on those super yachts, those huge 180-foot yachts. So he's there, he's right up there becoming a skipper. My daughter works in London in a property company. And they all walk and they realize you've got to have exercises. And again, they're great supporters, but also they tell other people what I do and help their friends. So that spreads around, spreads the word to help more and more people.
What you mentioned, your belief is that carbohydrates are maybe not essential for high level performance. Obviously, they haven't been for you. I would echo, I don't think you need them. I know I've performed at quite a high level, breaking some various age related world records and stuff. Where do you think the future of nutrition and athletics is going? There was an ISSN paper, the International Society of Sports Nutritionists came out talking about ketogenic diets versus carb-based diets, and they said that they're either neutral or slightly negative, but the main difference was the negative was often because you tend to undereat protein and calories, which is what may be the most issue. And I just tell people, it's got to eat enough. Do you see a shift? I know Tim Noakes has been banging the drum for a number of years now. Where do you think you see more and more athletes that are following this path?
I think so. The funny thing is when you go to, perfect example, you go to Italy. Perfect, they're drinking, eating pasta and everything, just like a normal person. They look all good and they've all got this subcutaneous book. Everyone, they're quite fit, but they've got this, basically looking like a chipmunk or not a chimpanzee. I think the shift has to go there. And I always say, who's making money when you do fasting? Who is making money when you're doing fasting? So why is there, they're always saying, oh, no, carbs, this and carbs, that. And a long time, no carbs. And we had those ketones that you could actually buy. They were a fortune. I don't know what they were for. You can actually buy that ketone mix. I can't remember what it was called. And they said, oh, and again, I tried it. People don't realize it takes a while. It doesn't take 1 week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks to change over to proper, to become ketosis and to be 100% reliant on fat and protein now. And I think that's the mistake that most of these guys do. They do it for 2 or 3 months and say, oh, no, it's not quite throwing it away. But I'm seeing it cycling. You can see that when I see the guys eating before the Tour de France, it's now eggs and bacon. And before, it was all this, we've got to have all our pasta and things like that. I think it's changing. It has to. There's no way. As I used to be sponsored by Cytomax and all those companies. I know water's the best. Can't harm you. There's no downside for it. And again, so many people have these sweetened drinks, have that high, and then they bonk. It's amazing.
Yeah, something I believe, the more I've seen this, is it does take a while to adapt. And I mean, I think you perform best what you're chronically adapted to. And most people, they grow up as kids eating carbohydrates and they spend their early training years of carbohydrates. So they've got 2 or 3 decades by the time they're at the peak of their athleticism. And so they're just so used to carbohydrates. I think it takes 6 months, a year, maybe even a couple of years to fully, just like training. You didn't become a world-class rower overnight or paddler overnight. It took you many years of adapting your body, not just learning the technique, but the physiology and then the adaptations that occur. So I think it's an adaptation that takes many reps for sure.
Exactly. As the old 10,000 hours by what's his name? I forgot his name. Everything takes about 10,000 hours, which is a lot of hours. Depends on how often you do it. You've got to change. You've got to change, and you can. And lots of people. I just have people out of the street. They say, "Hey, I'm 20 or 30 kilos overweight. What's my deal?" I said, "Okay, this is how we start. We start cutting out breakfast, and then we cut out lunch, and cutting out carbs is a given. It works every single time." And again, these are people off the street, athletes, and I say, if you want to exercise, just walk after dinner, or just walk, and you're going to do better. You've got to exercise. I still believe in exercise and having completely no carb diets.
Oscar, we're running out of time, unfortunately. So the book here is No Retreat, No Surrender. Where can people go to get the book? Where can people go to find out?
It's on the audio book, which what I've done is that I've got a proper narrator, the narrated half, and then after every chapter, so you've got a difference in voice telling you the mistakes I made in life, what I suggest you do. So people love the audiobook because it sounds like me, South African guy. And then I come in after every chapter giving the life lessons because I want to, this book is nothing about sport. It's all about helping other people overcoming the odds, overcoming adversity. So that's why I've put the life lessons in. And a portion of my royalties goes to campaigning for cancer because cancer is so expensive. Just to give you an example for your listeners, that the current drug I'm on is costing 32,000 euros, so 30,000 or $35,000 a month. If you haven't got money, you die, basically. So you have to have money. So I'm trying to raise money all the time for less privileged people and myself. And you do the same thing. That's important. So I'm giving back through the book.
Yeah, goodness. And you have a website, or I know you're on social. I know you're on Twitter at least, or X now is what it's called. But where can people find you there?
Oscar Chalupsky. I'm on all the thing. I'm on YouTube channel. So I'm always giving free tips on paddling, on diet, or anything. I give out more than I get, but again, hopefully it'll come back on when the wheel turns, as they say. So I'm on socials, Instagram, and always there to answer questions and help other people.
Well, Oscar, thank you for so much. It's been really enjoyable. I look forward to reading the book now having talked to you, and continued good luck in beating this cancer and continuing to inspire other people. And maybe we'll talk again, hopefully, maybe in South Africa. I know they're trying to get me down there, and maybe we'll run into each other. Are you in which part of South Africa? You're in?
Yeah, hang around Cape Town and Durban, but I'll go everywhere. Yeah. It's so cheap. And it'd be lovely to take you on a proper paddle where the wind blows 100 miles an hour, and then I'll take on the ride. I do a lot on the ride.
Yeah, goodness, that might be. I don't know. I might be dead weight in the boat, though. We'll see. No, anyway.
Yeah, you don't have to be dead weight because, as I say, that's where my skill is. And it's a 12-kilometer paddle. It's called a miller's run, and the wind blows like you've never seen. When you cannot believe it. As I say, it's close to 100 miles an hour all the time.
Wow, sounds like a thrill for sure. Thanks.